Today we're moving up the kinetic chain from the ankles to the knees. And specifically, we're talking about valgus knee, otherwise known as knock knee. It's a misalignment of your knees. See, what happens is you get internal rotation of your lower leg. Your tibia, it's the bigger of the two bones on your lower leg. Well, it externally rotates. This causes the lower part of that bone at your ankles to flare out, where up by the knees, it caves in along with your femur bone. Thus the term knock knee, your knees are heading inward. People experience this problem when they're doing squats all the time. You'll see the poor form, and that's going to lead to injuries. It's caused by arthritis, obesity, infection, or injury. Ever heard of rickets? That's caused by a lack of vitamin D, calcium, and phosphate. Your bones soften, they become weak. Therefore, they can't support your own weight, and lo and behold, your knees are caving in. Perhaps you're experiencing symptoms of knock knee. Are you limping due to stiff joints or knee pain? The knee pain in your muscles and ligaments will trickle down to ankle pain and foot pain, or make its way up to your hips. Remember, we're all connected. We're one kinetic chain. How do you see if you have knock knee? Well, are your knees aligned? Is one leg longer than the other? It happens. Are your shoes worn unevenly? Check them out. And of course, just observe yourself when you're doing those exercises. Again, like the squats. Some of you might be asking, why does this happen? It's more common in women. The knee collapse is due to a wider pelvis position in relation to the knees. Now, if it persists, the pain is going to be felt in your knee for one, the patellofemoral joint. That's basically your kneecap. That's where you're going to feel that pain. As I mentioned, injury can lead to knock knee. There's a common one in the knee. Perhaps you've heard of an ACL tear. The ACL is a ligament that connects your upper thigh bone, the femur, to your big shin bone, the tibia. And if that's torn, it becomes weakened, causes pain, and that, of course, can cause your knees to collapse in during activity or exercise. Remember, our kinetic chain is connected, so if you have weak hip muscles in the front and in the back, particularly the gluteus medius, that's the buttocks muscle underneath the gluteus maximus. If they're weak, your knees are more likely to buckle under strain of any kind. Take kickboxers, for instance. When you're delivering a kick, if you have strong hip flexors and a strong gluteus medius, you're gonna have this position. Notice how the knee is not caving in. But if you have weak hip muscles and a weak gluteus medius, check this out. Notice how the knee caves inward. That's asking for trouble. Then let's go back down the chain. If you have flat feet, your inner feet are caving inwards, which is causing your knees to collapse. You may have poor range of motion at your ankles. What does that mean? Let me explain. Say you're doing a squat. You're flexing your knees on your way down. You got to be able to keep the soles of your feet from your toes all the way to your heels on the ground through the entire movement. That means your heel can't be lifted, and you need to be able to do that even as your knees go up to 5 inches in front of your toes. A lot of people will say, when you do squats, you can't let your knees go any farther forward than your toes. That's not true. If you have proper form, what's important is that your knees and your toes are aligned on the way down. What's happening, if you have the correct form, your muscles are taking the brunt of the force. Your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, your core. There are cases when your hip strength is fine, your ankle mobility is fine. You've had no injuries like an ACL tear or IT band syndrome, which I mentioned in the last video. Perhaps it's just due to improper form. You've been lazy, or you were never taught to do it the right way, so you built bad habits. Well, guess what? You gotta have that mind-body connection and start consciously, intentionally exercising and thinking about it and watching yourself in a mirror, having other people watch you and correct it. And guess what? After you do it several times on a regular basis, you're going to replace the bad habit with a good one, and your body will start working optimally. The pain will fade away. You'll walk with more confidence, feeling good. Let's get into some exercises, starting with resistance band squats. These are great. You can do them body weight. That is just fine. So you take a resistance band and you put it around your two legs, just above your knee, with your feet generally a little wider than your hip width. It's going to vary for everyone. You got to get comfortable. See what feels comfortable to you. Someone might be a little more closed in their stance. Someone might be a little wider. But whoever you are, you got to make sure your knees are aligned with your toes. Drive your hips back, bending at the knees and ankles. You're pushing against that resistance outward. Sit into that squat position. You're striving to get your knees at that 90-degree angle, all the while having that mind-body connection. So you're thinking about knees aligned with your toes, soles of your feet flat on the floor. Your quads are engaged, your hamstrings, your glutes, your core. You're not feeling strain in your lower back. On your way up, push from your heels and get into a straightened position. Oh, very important as you do this. Your chest is up, your shoulders are back. Shoulders are so important. The scapula, we'll get into that in future episodes. If you're not incorporating squats into your normal routine, you need to change that. It's the king of the crop when it comes to exercises. Think about it. Every day you're sitting down, you're standing up, you're squatting down to pick something up. It's a full body exercise. You're engaging so many major muscles. In addition to the ones I mentioned, your hip adductors, which brings your legs closer to the medial portion of your body, or your abductors, which moves your legs outward away from your body. Speaking of hip abduction, that's going to be featured in our next exercise to lick knock-knee syndrome. They're called resistance band hip hinges. Now, this time we're going to be lying flat on our backs. We got the knees bent, feet flat on the floor. We have the resistance band around our legs just above the knees once again. And we're going to be putting resistance against our abduction while stimulating the glutes. Before you press the hips up, you're going to engage the back by pressing it gently against the ground. Then engage your core as you press your hips upwards by contracting the glutes. You're squeezing your butt cheeks. Be mindful. All the motion is coming from your hips. Keep your back nice and straight. And remember, your legs are pushing outward against that resistance band. That's abduction. Be conscious of how every rep feels. You're teaching your body to move through the hips. And also, you should not feel your quads getting fatigued. And you definitely should not feel pain in your back. Next up, the clam. For this one, you're lying on your side. Your knees are bent about 90 degrees. Your spine is aligned with your heels, which are stacked one on top of the other. Your hips are facing forward. You're going to put the resistance band around your legs again, just above your knees. Raise one knee up, pushing against that resistance of the band. Remember, avoid rotating the hips as you do this. Keep the pelvis pointing straight ahead. These exercises strengthen the muscles that tend to be weak and cause knock-knee. There's also the muscles that are stronger, but they're too tight. What you're going to do for these is you're going to stretch them out rather than build them up. Let's start with the heel and a calf stretch. This can be dynamic or static. I'll show you what I mean. Face a wall, put your hands against the wall, and put one foot as far back as you can that is comfortable. The entire sole of your foot is on the ground. And put your other foot against the wall, meaning your toe is touching the wall. And then you're going to lean forward so your knee touches the wall. As you do so, you should feel a slight pull on the back of your leg. Now, to make it more challenging, take that foot that's against the wall, move it back, and try it again. And keep doing that. The dynamic stretch is you're just kind of rocking back and forth, always being conscious of the muscles you're focusing on. The calf, the hamstring, your core remains engaged. Okay, you're placing emphasis on your quads so that you're not feeling strain in your knees. If you're feeling strain in your knees, you need to adjust. All the while, keeping the soles of your feet on the ground. You can do, again, 3 sets of 10 if you like. You can do a dynamic version. That's going back and forth. That's the type of exercise you do before a workout to stimulate the muscles and get them ready to move. The static ones are where you hold in place. So in that case, you put the knee against the wall, you feel that stretch, and you hold it for 30 seconds. Static stretches you're going to do after a workout or in the morning, in the evening before you go to bed. But static stretches aren't something that's ideal for pre-workout. Something to remember. Moving on to the quadricep stretch. This one is going to stretch your quads and your hip flexors, which are right here. For this one, you're standing, feet about shoulder width apart, line up your knees and your toes, and then you're going to flex one of your knees. You grab your lower leg at the ankle, not the foot, and you pull up on your ankle until your heel touches your buttocks, your glutes, and keep that line of motion straight. Don't twist and turn your knee at all. No, keep that one path. This next one's a hamstring stretch. It's a little more challenging. You're lying flat on your back. Your legs are extended. What you're going to do is you're going to grab one of your legs, the back of the upper thigh by your hamstrings. It's just above your knee. And you're going to pull that, keeping your leg as straight as possible. If you have to bend your knee, that's okay. You shouldn't feel pain in this, just the stretch. The straighter your leg, the more the stretch. You can actually stretch your calves too if you flex your ankles while you're doing it. For a static stretch, you hold it for 30 seconds. For a more dynamic stretch, you can slowly go back and forth, back and forth. You're stimulating your nervous system, preparing it for a workout if you do the dynamic version, back and forth slowly without stopping. There you go. Steps to correct that knee valgus. Always be intentional with your workouts. You're always thinking about that mind-body connection. And you have to believe as you're doing these that it's going to get corrected and you're going to feel better and get back in sync and be the best version of yourself.